guys, West Coast Taco here, and welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today, guys, we are going to go over on how I detail the exterior of my Tacoma. Let's dive into it. First things first, get yourself a bucket, 2 sponges, and some car wash soap. Next, go ahead and rinse off the entire vehicle, including under the wheel wells. And then before we get started with the body of the vehicle, I'm going to do the wheels and tires with a Turtle Wax wheel and tire cleaner. Now, the reason I do this first is because I feel like if I let the solution stay on the tires and wheels for too long, it kind of hardens and creates more of like a paste. You don't want to let products sit on a vehicle for too long, especially when it comes to detergents and cleaners. So I've noticed for timing purposes, by the time I get done doing all of the tires and the wheels, by the time I get around to the very first one that I did, it's ready to be rinsed off, and then I can proceed with the rest of the vehicle. Next, grab your sponge that you have dedicated to the upper portions of your vehicle, and this would be the paint, glass, the top of the fender flares, areas where there's not a lot of heavy dirt and grime like there would be under your wheel wells, the tire area. You want to definitely have 2 different sponges, one dedicated for each portion of the vehicle. And as you're doing this, don't apply a lot of pressure to the sponge. Let it glide. Pushing on it can cause more harm than good, as it picks up debris and can actually scratch the clear coat. And once you've completed soaping everything up, you're going to rinse the entire vehicle. And this is a silicone water blade. If you don't have one, I would highly recommend it. It will make your life a lot easier in this drying process. In the same process I do when washing, work your way from the top down. It's much simpler to dry by working from the roof or the hood down than trying to work your way from the bottom up. I know that sounds like common sense, but if you've never done this before and you don't know, it can be very frustrating to dry the bottom portion of your vehicle until you realize you still have to do the hood or the top, and all that water that you're going to be pushing down is going to be falling down on the portions you already dried. I also use my shop vac to blow out areas of the vehicle where it's hard to get water out of, as well as the fuel tank. Next, I open up my doors and get all of that water that made it in between the door jambs and areas of the vehicle where water sometimes can be forgotten about. And next, I go under my hood and dry up any water that happened to splash underneath while I was rinsing off the vehicle. By doing this, I never have to do a full detail to the engine bay, as I just keep it in check and maintained on a regular basis. Next is the clay bar session, guys, and this part is very important before applying any type of wax, ceramic coating, or PPF to your vehicle. So what I do is I douse the panels in a quick detailer spray from Meguiar's. I have a clay bar that's also from Meguiar's, and I split that in half and create a nice little rectangle out of it. And then I just effortlessly let the clay bar glide along the panels of the vehicle. I do wear vinyl gloves, and this really helps spread the detailing spray, as well as keep my hands from getting, dried out from having quick detailer on them for hours at a time. During this process, take your time, but as you will quickly notice, there are a lot of dirt and contaminants that are going to be left in your clear coat after you wash the vehicle. And essentially, the clay bar is pulling out all those impurities, so when you apply the wax or a PPF or a ceramic coating, it can properly adhere and stick to the clear coat and provide a premium protection and shine and polish to the vehicle. After the clay bar has been completed, I use some blue painter's tape to kind of cover up certain portions of the plastic trim on my bed. And now we're going to move on to the polish or compound, depending on how badly of shape your clear coat is in. For me today, we're just going to go with the polish because I've done a lot of compounding over the past year, and a nice coat of polish would do just enough to get off any fine scratches that have happened over the past few months. Now, one thing I do want to make mention of that you need to be very careful with when doing this type of work on your vehicle is make sure that you are moving the rotor around and not leaving it in one space for too long, because you can easily and quickly burn your clear coat. And once that happens, the only way to get it fixed is to have that entire panel repainted. So once again, this is one of those things that you just have to kind of take your time and be patient with. You don't want to apply a bunch of pressure. You want the rotary to do all of the work for you, and you just want it to kind of glide along the clear coat, and you want to just kind of continuously go back and forth without making, a tremendous amount of heat, and making sure that there's not a lot of heat building up on the panel you're removing the scratches from, especially when using a compound. Now, typically for the waxing, I do up to 2 panels at a time. Once I'm done with the second panel, usually the first panel I started off with is ready to be wiped down and have that wax removed. It's worked for me, and I think it'll work well for you. One of the big things when it comes to doing this stuff, guys, is making sure you're doing it in a shaded area. So whether it's under a car detailing tent or in your garage, that's very important, because if the sun is beating down on a panel, it can become too hot, and that it will really increase your chances of burning the clear coat. Also, the wax will harden and become more difficult to remove. And as you could see there, for me, had a little spot of the tailgate where the sun was kind of hitting on it, and I used some quick detailer spray to remove the remainder of the wax that didn't come off with me just rubbing it with a dry, clean microfiber. When it comes to the hood and the roof, as well as the front, I usually do about 2 layers of wax, because those areas typically take the most amount of beating from the elements, as well as the sun just kind of beating on it on a regular basis. Once that's completed, I do use VRP on honestly almost everything that has plastic trim or rubber on my vehicle. It's kind of one of those products, like, it does good with everything. So instead of having, a type of, chemical I use for the trims on the exterior and the interior, and then a dressing for the tire, I literally use VRP, guys, for everything. So the exterior trim, the interior trim of my vehicle, and then once again, as well as the tires. This stuff is really great. It works great for me, at least. And what I like about it is it's literally a dressing that actually holds up pretty well. And it's not like a stain or a paint or a dye that's going to really kind of alter the shade color of the plastic or the trim of the vehicle. And I do this about once a month, sometimes every other month, depending on how the vehicle is looking. But really, guys, it doesn't take much effort. I use an applicator sponge, and I mean, it's really this simple. Just all the plastic trim gets a little bit of a wipe down with some VRP. And then the tires I do about once a month as well. I feel like having tires that are really shiny and glossy look kind of funny on a truck, but I feel like having like a nice clean matte finish looks much better. And so that's why I'm not actually doing the tires on this one, but I do use VRP for them as well. And for those of you who are wondering why I put VRP on literally all of my plastic trim, it's not to make the truck look shiny. It's actually to provide more of a protection for the trim, because we all know these trim pieces can get faded and become dried and brittle, where the VRP is acting almost as a sunscreen would for our skin on the plastic trim, and it keeps everything looking nice and just dark, and it keeps the trim from fading, keeps the plastic from getting brittle. And that's why I do it. It's to extend the life of all these items on my truck, which at the end of the day extends the life of the truck in general. I even do it under the wheel wells, not very frequently, but every few months I do it, and it just really cleans everything up. And this is actually a pretty common tip that a lot of car detailers use on car dealer lots when selling these vehicles. A lot of times you'll see them and they look super shiny and clean, and this is what they do. So there you guys have it, the final product. So many of you, like I said, over the past, I don't know, year or so have had questions on how do you keep your truck looking this way? What have I done? And once again, guys, this truck is about to hit 4 years old. This was a 2020 and 2024 is upon us. So 4 years, about 30,000 miles on it. And when I bought this vehicle, the paint was not in the condition it is now. And to be completely honest, after the session I just did making this video, I've probably put close to 48 hours of paint correction and love and care into kind of restoring the clear coat and just kind of getting the paint to where it is now. Now, you know, when it comes to how frequently do I do this, well, I only wash my truck every couple of weeks. And I use the quick detailer spray to keep things cleaned up and touched up. And then I have one of those car dusters that I dust it off with, you know, every couple of days or so, depending on the dust that builds up on it. But you have to be careful, because that can cause more harm than good if, you know, the dust particles start scratching. So there's obviously a procedure to that, but really at the end of the day, I don't think most people are going to spend the time to, you know, dust off their truck every couple of days and then do a detail session, you know, every 4 or 5 days, depending on how much they drive the truck. But for me, my bread and butter is a wash every 2 weeks, and then doing a clay bar polish and wax, you know, twice a year. I prefer to do it when the seasons change. So typically between, I would say, March is a good time frame for me, before the sun starts coming out and getting really strong. And then I do it again in October, right before the rain and the winter approaches. And for you guys that live in areas where there's a lot of snow, a lot of salt, or maybe just extreme heat, you might want to do it 3 times a year, just to really give yourself that extra protection. I'm sure some of you have thought about it, and you're probably thinking right now, like, what about ceramic coating? I think ceramic coating is a great option. Obviously, it's going to cost you more to get it done. I think it is a better option. However, I've been doing wax and polish and compound almost for 10 years on all my vehicles, and I've had great results. If you're looking for a more permanent finish, obviously a PPF and a ceramic coating is going to give you some more protection. And if your truck is brand spanking new, I would really look into getting a lot of PPF done to really protect that paint and that clear coat. But, you know, for me, like, I bought this truck in 2022. It was already 2 years old. There was already a significant amount of pinstriping and scratching all over the vehicle. And that is kind of the blessing and curse of having a black vehicle in general, not even just a black Tacoma, is that black shows every flaw, every scratch, every speck of dirt. It shows everything, and it takes a lot of work to maintain it. It takes a lot of effort to keep it going. And it's one of those things that when it looks good, it looks really good, and when it looks dirty, it looks really dirty. There's really no middle ground with black paint. However, I can say this, after having it for over a year personally, the reward is really nice, because I feel like there's really nothing that looks better than a blacked out Tacoma that's kept up and that looks clean. Now, I'm sure everybody has their own opinions, and obviously Toyota makes a lot of colors, because if everybody wanted a black Tacoma, they would just make black. But I would say that for me, having the blacked out truck and doing what I've done with it so far, it's been very rewarding, and I enjoy. It's kind of therapeutic for me doing what I do with this truck. So I don't look at this truck as a burden. It's more of an enjoyment, and it's something I enjoy to do. And the detailing sessions I spend with this truck are obviously not for everybody, and they're very time consuming, but it's my hobby. It's what I enjoy doing, and it's that simple. So if you guys have any questions at all, throw them in the comment section. Once again, all the products you saw me use in the video are, I'm not sponsored by any of those companies. They're just products that I've, you know, tried and used for years and years, and they work well for me. I'm sure they're not the best ones, but they're definitely not the worst. And it's that simple, guys. To keep the exterior of my vehicle looking this way, that's the process I do semi-annually. But like I said, just the wash and keeping the vehicle just clean in general, and kind of spacing out the fender flares, the VRP on certain plastic trimmings, doing that every few months, and then doing the big semi-annual you know, overhaul is something that I do to really just keep the truck looking the way it looks. All right. Okay, guys. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to, as always, reach out in the comment section. More than happy to help. Until the next one, guys, I'll be talking to you soon, and stay tuned, because I will be doing an interior detail, and I will be doing an undercarriage detail, because I do that as well. And so for those of you who are curious how I keep the truck looking the way I do on the inside and as well as underneath, stay tuned for that. All right, guys. Talk to you soon. See ya.